So, we are now a decent ways into Chapter 2, Season 1 here in Fortnite Battle Royale, and despite the season being extended into early February of 2020 thanks to the upcoming holiday update, we've got a new in-game event on the horizon. It's not exactly the original in-game event we expected, which would have been the finale event for Chapter 2 Season 1, but instead it is going to be a holiday-themed event, likely based around Christmas and or New Year's, and it'll be taking place at the end of December. So now with that news out there, it seems like we'll be getting two events within Chapter 2 Season 1, the first obviously being that holiday event, and then the second being the actual finale event, which will probably take place at the very end of January or at the start of February to transition us into Chapter 2 Season 2. So with all of the event talk going on right now, we figured there's no better time than now to jump into the world of Fortnite Battle Royale and break down all of the previous live events that we've seen all the way from Season 4 up through Season X, and rank them from worst to best. As always with these kinds of videos, it is all based on opinions at the end of the day, and yours could very easily be different. So feel free to drop your thoughts on our list down in the comments below, and without further ado, let's get into it. Number 8, the Ice Storm event. Coming in at dead last on our list of Fortnite events is the Ice Storm event that took place back at the end of Season 7 in Chapter 1. So why is this the worst event of all time? Well, frankly, it just didn't meet expectations. Sure, if this was the first ever live in-game event for Fortnite Battle Royale, maybe then it would not be the worst on the list. But the fact that multiple events had come before this one, and one of those was even earlier on in the same season, fans had very high hopes for this event, and well, it just fell short. The event itself was also pretty short, it didn't last long at all, and as far as its wow factor, all it ended up doing was covering the map in ice and snow for a few days, and then even that started to melt away pretty soon as well. So the lasting impacts of the event weren't too crazy either. Plus, we had already seen the map covered in snow during Christmas, so the effects of the event weren't even unique in that sense. So all of that taken into consideration, this event did not really stand out as anything too crazy, it didn't really leave people talking about it for weeks to follow, and it just wasn't all that memorable, and so it sits as the worst event in Fortnite history in my own opinion. Number 7, the Cube's lifespan. So just to clarify on this spot, what we are talking about with the Cube's lifespan is Kevin's journey from birth in Paradise Palms thanks to the purple lightning, all the way up until the moment the butterfly event started, as we're counting that as its own separate event later on. So back in Season 5 we saw Kevin the Cube spawn into the island, and shortly after that he began to roll around, leaving runes imprinted on the ground as he moved about. Eventually he found his way into Loot Lake, where he then dissolved into it at the end of Season 5, only to be resurrected in Season 6 as the Cube Island, which then went around and corrupted all the various rune areas that Kevin left on his initial pass-through. Now, this event was cool, but it was also unlike all of the others on today's list, as it took place over the course of nearly an entire season by the time it was all said and done. The idea of it was pretty neat, but the execution got a little stale after a while. Day after day the cube would roll around, and there were plenty of days when the cube moved and it really did nothing at all besides just move 10 feet forward. Same deal goes for when the Cube Island would just move from place to place and it wasn't actually corrupting any of the rune areas. The whole event seemed a little dragged out, and thus for that reason it gets knocked down a bit. Number 6, the Butterfly event. Speaking of Kevin the Cube, his final moments on the island were spent spinning around at the speed of light back in Season 6, before he combusted and sent us into the butterfly dimension for a few moments where we saw some neat looking rifts, and then we were promptly sent back to the Fortnite island, where Kevin the Cube was simply a few fragments in the center of Loot Lake, and thus he was never heard from again, until of course we made it to the new Apollo Island, where there's now a factory based around him, but that's besides the point. Now, frankly, I would rank the Cube's lifespan and the butterfly events the same, but in order to differentiate them for the sake of this list, the only reason I have this event above the Cube's lifespan is because it's just that, an actual event. There was a lot of hype behind this, there was a countdown, people were eager and ready to see this happen, which kinda just made everything about it extra exciting. Number 5, the Unbolting Event. We saw the Unbolting event take place in Season 8, and it was certainly one of the coolest events that we've seen in Fortnite history. And I think the fact that there are still 4 other spots ahead of this one speaks volumes for just how good some of these live events have been. Now, the main draw of the Unbolting event was not the actual unvaulting itself, but instead what happened after that as we returned to the island after unvaulting the drum gun. And there we witnessed one of the biggest disasters in all of Fortnite Battle Royale history, the volcano's eruption. This eruption would end up destroying 2 of the most popular locations on the island, that being Tilted Towers, which is easily the most popular POI ever, and also Retail Row. The volcano also damaged the Polar Peak iceberg, which would then set in motion the events of Season 9, so it had far greater repercussions than just what we saw take place within the confines of Season 8. All around, the Unvaulting event was really exciting to watch. It pretty much had everyone talking about it for weeks to come, but somehow, someway, Epic still made 4 other events that were even better than it. Number 4. The Marshmallow Concert. We saw the Marshmallow Concert take place back in Season 7 as well, making Season 7 the first ever season to see 2 events happen within it, and without a doubt, it was the better of the 2. The concert was also a few firsts in its own respect as well. It was the first ever live virtual concert, and by association it was also the biggest live virtual concert ever, and it was also the first non-storyline related event too, which was pretty cool to see. All around, there weren't many negative things that could be said about it, other than the fact that it just didn't last long enough. You know, we could have gone for another 10 or 20 or even 30 minutes, and it still would have been equally as awesome. But at the same time, the roughly 10 minutes or so that it took place for were fantastic. You really felt like you were a part of the crowd during this event, and it absolutely made waves for what was to come in Fortnite and just gaming in general. Number 3. The Rocket Launch. The first ever live in-game event for Fortnite Battle Royale took place back in Season 4, and it set the bar incredibly high. In fact, it set the bar so high that 5 other events couldn't even surpass said bar despite falling multiple seasons after it. Going into the rocket launch, we didn't really know what to expect, we weren't sure how long it was going to last, etc, etc. We especially were not sure what was going to happen, and for those reasons, it had us on the edges of our seats throughout the whole thing. From when the rocket nearly destroyed Tilted Towers, to when it busted through Loot Lake and into Oblivion, creating a massive hole in the sky. From start to finish, the rocket launch was utterly incredible. Number 2. The Final Showdown. The Season 9 finale event was basically a mini-movie in a sense, as the Polar Peak Ice Monster took on the Mecha Robot in a battle to the death, and it is without a doubt deserving of the number 2 spot on this list. The event took place kind of all over the map, and even outside the map in some cases as they fought out in the ocean, and it finally finished just outside of Salty Springs in epic fashion as the robot harnessed the energy of the Nexus Orb, and with a little help from the Singularity Sword, it was able to vanquish the Polar Peak Ice Monster once and for all and save the island from its certain doom. This event, like I said, was a mini-movie in a sense, and for that it takes home the silver medal. Number 1. The End Event. Of course, by process of elimination, the End Event has to end off our list today as the single best event in Fortnite history. I mean, come on, if the Final Showdown was a mini-movie, the End Event was a full-on feature film, as it completely blew all of the previous events out of the water. The initial rocket launching, the barrage of rockets to follow, and the black hole altogether seriously broke the entire internet. And well, if you break the internet, that easily makes you number 1 in any kind of ranked list. So now that we've gone through our list of the Fortnite live events and ranked them from worst to best, it is time to hear from you guys. Which event in Fortnite Battle Royale history is the worst of all time, and which event is the best of all time? Be sure to drop your thoughts down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, give it a big old thumbs up, it would be much appreciated. And of course, if you are new here and you like what you see, feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on. That way you'll always know when a new video goes live. As always, by joining the notification squad, every single time we post a new video, YouTube will actually send you a message letting you know that we've gone live. That way you can be the first person to watch, like, and comment on each and every new video. With all of that being said, that is effectively going to wrap things up for now. So thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you guys on the battle bus. Peace out.